She paid for him, right there at the counter in front of everyone. That is how this story begins, not with a plan, not with a prepared speech. Just a woman in a green pharmacy apron reaching into her own pocket, pulling out everything she had left until Friday, and laying it flat on the counter for a man she had never seen before in her life. The whole store went quiet. But before I tell you what happened after that money hit the counter, hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because what this man did next, and what the woman behind him in line had coming to her, you don't want to miss a single word of it. Let me start at the beginning. Let me tell you about the man first. His name was Yaw Darko, 60 years old, founder and chairman of Darko Properties Group, a real estate development company that had quietly shaped the skyline of the Greater Toronto area for the better part of 3 decades. Residential towers in North York, commercial buildings in Mississauga, a condominium complex along the waterfront that had won 2 architectural awards and been written up in 3 magazines, though you'd never find Yaw's name in any of those articles because he had specifically asked to be left out of them. He came to Canada from Kumasi, Ghana in 1987, 28 years old. A bag of clothes, a cousin's address in Scarborough, and very little else. He worked construction for 6 years. Not management, not consulting, actual construction. Mixing cement in January. Carrying drywall up 4 flights of stairs. Learning the trade from the ground up because his father back in Kumasi had told him, "You will not understand the house if you do not first understand the brick." By the time he was 35, he had his contractor's license. By 40, a small 4-unit building in Brampton that he had renovated himself on weekends. By 50, Darko Properties Group was managing a portfolio worth over $2 billion. But you would never know it to look at him. Yaw did not dress like a man with money. He drove himself most days in a 10-year-old Volvo that needed new wiper blades. He wore plain clothes, work pants, a fleece jacket, boots that had seen better winters. He had a personal driver named Adai, who had worked for him for 11 years and was the most quietly loyal person Yaw had ever employed, but Yaw only called on Adai for formal occasions. For ordinary errands, the hardware store, the pharmacy, the grocery run, Yaw went alone. It was not an act, it was simply who he was. His father had been the wealthiest man in their village without anyone quite realizing it, and he had believed, with quiet conviction, that the moment you began performing your wealth, you had already started losing something that could not be recovered. But there was something Yaw's money had not been able to buy him, and at 60 years old, it was the only thing he still wanted. A partner, a real one, someone who would see the construction worker from Kumasi, not the chairman of the board. He had tried 3 times. The first was Celestine, brilliant, a corporate lawyer, the kind of woman who walked into a room and changed its atmosphere. They had been together for 2 years. When Yaw's partnership with a development company in Hamilton fell through, and he lost over $10 million in 1 quarter, Celestine told him she needed someone more certain of their future. She called again 8 months later, once the word got out that Darko Properties had signed a major deal with the city. He saw her name on his phone, and he set the phone back down and walked away from it. The second was Renelle. She was warm, funny, and made him feel like himself for the first time in a long while, until he discovered she had been sharing detailed information about his finances with her friends. He had overheard a phone conversation he was not supposed to hear. He had said nothing to anyone about it. He had simply quietly ended things. The third was the worst. Her name was Maxine. He had genuinely loved her. He was close to proposing when his lawyer flagged something. Maxine had been consulting with a family law attorney for months, quietly, drafting the outlines of what a separation might look like before Yaw had ever said the word marriage. She was planning the exit before they had even built the entrance. After Maxine, Yaw stopped trying. He focused on work, on his foundation which funded trades apprenticeships for young black men across Ontario, on the house in Forest Hill that was very beautiful and very silent in the evenings. Addie, who said little but noticed everything, said at once, "Boss, you need to stop eating dinner alone. I eat at restaurants all the time." "That's not what I mean, and you know it." Yaw knew. He just didn't have an answer. Then his mother called from Kumasi. She was 83 now, and her voice had grown thin, but the words still landed the way they always had. Yaw, I had a dream. What kind of dream, Mama? You were walking through a market. All around you were expensive stalls, fresh fish, cloth, gold pieces, fine yam. You walked past all of them, and you were hungry, so hungry. But you kept passing the small stall at the edge. The woman there had plain things, simple things, but they were real. You almost walked right past her. What does it mean? Stop looking where things have been arranged to impress you. Look where life is just being lived. Ordinary places, ordinary people. How will I know her? She will give you something she cannot afford to lose, and she won't ask you to notice. Yaw sat with those words for 5 days. On the 6th, he had a plan. He told Aday. Aday stared at him. You want to go to a shopper's drug mart on Eglinton and pretend to forget your wallet. I want to see what happens when an ordinary-looking man can't pay for his prescription. Your mother called, didn't she? Yaw smiled. Drive me 2 blocks away and wait with the car. Aday shook his head slowly, but he drove. Abiba Mensah was 34 years old. She had been working at the Shoppers Drug Mart on Eglinton Avenue in Scarborough for 5 years, first as a cashier, then, after 2 years of night school, as a pharmacy technician. She worked 38 hours a week. She made $21.50 an hour, before deductions that was roughly $200 a month. After rent, the TTC pass, groceries, and her pharmacy licensing program fees, she had on a good month about $180 left over. This was not a good month. Her younger brother Kosi had needed new winter boots. His old ones had split at the sole in November, and Abiba had noticed, without saying a word, that he had been sliding a plastic bag over his sock before putting the boot on to keep the wet out for at least 2 weeks before she finally went online and ordered him new ones. She did not regret it, not for a moment. But it left her with $61 in her account until Friday. Kosi was 17. He had come to Canada 18 months ago, after their mother, Akua, who had raised both of them in Accra and whose laugh was so specific that Abiba still sometimes heard it in crowded rooms and turned around for her, died of a stroke while Kosi was sitting his secondary school examinations. He was 16 years old. He had finished the exam before leaving the hall to go to the hospital, because their mother had told him before losing consciousness to finish what he started. Abiba had been in Canada for 6 years by then. She had worked. She had sent money home on a steady schedule, not always much, but reliably, the way you fill something one careful pour at a time. When her mother died, she spent the next 14 months inside the Canadian immigration system, hiring a consultant she could not properly afford, pulling every legal thread she could find to get her brother to Toronto. She did it. It took everything she had, financially, and in some other way that she did not have a clean word for, but she did it. Now, Kosi was here. He went to school. He was quiet and serious and wanted to study environmental engineering. He did the dishes before Abiba got home from her evening course. He left her dinner wrapped in foil on the stove on nights she came back late. She never told him how close things were. She didn't want him carrying what wasn't his to carry. Some evenings she stood at the kitchen counter and ate crackers with peanut butter and called it dinner and did not say so to anyone. Some mornings she skipped the Tim Hortons coffee. She usually allowed herself on the walk to the bus stop because 2.19 was $2.10, and it was a Tuesday. Her mother had said, "Watch how a person treats what they have when they don't have much. That is the whole character, right there. Everything else is performance." It was a Tuesday in February. The kind of cold Scarborough gets in February, not dramatic, just relentless, the wind off the lake going straight through every layer you put on. Abiba was at the pharmacy counter. The store was busy in the specific way it gets busy at 4 in the afternoon. People stopping in after work, a lineup at the prescription window, a mother trying to steer a stroller with one hand and hold a basket with the other. Abiba had been on since 8 that morning. She had 30 minutes left in her shift. A man came to the counter. He was older, 60, perhaps a little more, with a gray beard and the unhurried, settled walk of someone who had stopped trying to look like they were going somewhere important. Fleece jacket, plain dark pants, practical boots. He set down a small basket, throat lozenges, a box of antacid tablets, and one prescription bag the pharmacy had already prepared for him, lisinopril, blood pressure medication. "Good afternoon," Abiba said. "Good afternoon." He smiled, a quiet, even smile, the kind that doesn't need anyone else to make it make sense. She scanned the items. "Your total today is $61.83, sir." He reached into his jacket pocket, then the other one, then his trouser pockets. His expression shifted. Not panicked, genuinely confused. The specific confusion of someone whose experience of reality has stopped matching their expectation of it. "I think," he paused. "I think I've left my wallet at home. I'm sorry. I was certain I had it." Behind him in the line, a voice cut in. "Are you serious right now?" The woman was perhaps 45. Her coat was camel-colored and clearly expensive. Her nails were long and precise. She had the particular bearing of someone who had decided some time ago that her time was worth significantly more than other people's, and who had never quite been convinced otherwise. Her name was Mavis. She was a regional operations manager for a cosmetics retail chain. She drove a leased BMW. She had been standing in this line for 7 minutes, which felt to Mavis like an unreasonable demand made specifically of her. "Some of us are actually trying to get somewhere this evening." She said it loudly, to the line in general. "Is this what we're doing? We're standing here while someone fishes through their pockets?" She turned to the other shoppers the way people do when they want an audience rather than a conversation. "I have children at home. I have a schedule. This is—" She made a sound and waved her hand at the man. The gesture said, "You are an inconvenience that has taken the shape of a person." "I apologize," the man said quietly. "I've clearly made an error." "You've clearly made an error." Mavis repeated it with precision. "What kind of person picks up a prescription without checking they have their wallet?" He did not answer her. He looked at the items on the counter with a steadiness that made Abiba's chest tighten. Then he began to push the basket back. "I'll leave it. I'm sorry for your time." And that is when Abiba reached into her apron pocket. She did not think about it. She did not calculate. She pulled out 2 20s and a fistful of loonies and toonies she had been keeping for the bus home, counted them out on the counter. $61.83, nearly exact, the last few cents coming from the very bottom of her palm, and she slid the money across. "What are you doing?" Mavis said. Paying for his medication, Abiba did not look up. That Mavis sputtered. "That's your money to waste, I suppose." The store had gone quiet, not the usual distracted quiet of people on their phones. Something different. The quiet of people witnessing something they had not expected and were not sure what to do with. Abiba finished the transaction. She bagged the items and slid them across the counter. "Here you go, sir. You take care of yourself tonight." The man looked at her. He looked at her for a long time. "Why did you do that?" His voice was careful, low. "You needed your medication," Abiba said. "Simple as that." "That was your money." "I've skipped dinner before. I'll be fine until Friday." He looked at her, not cataloging her, not evaluating her. The way a person looks when they have understood something that surprised them. "What's your name?" She tapped her name tag, Abiba Mensah. He picked up the bag. "Thank you, Abiba." "You're welcome. Go take care of yourself." He turned toward the door. The whole store tracked him with their eyes. And then he stopped. He turned around. He walked back to the counter. "Oh, what now?" Mavis said. Yaw Darko set his bag down. He reached into the inside of his fleece jacket, a pocket that hadn't been visible before, and he pulled out a phone, a very expensive phone. He pressed one button. "Ade, come to the front entrance. Bring the portfolio." 20 seconds later, a dark green Cadillac Escalade pulled to the entrance of the store. A man in a sharp gray suit stepped through the automatic doors, carrying a leather portfolio. Every person in that pharmacy went completely still. Yaw opened the portfolio. He removed a business card and placed it on the counter in front of Abiba. She read it. "Yaw Darko, founder and chairman, Darko Properties Group." She looked up. His voice was quiet, not performing, just clear. "I came here today without my wallet on purpose." He said it simply, the way you explain a fact. "I wanted to see what happened when a man who looked like me, dressed like this, couldn't pay for something ordinary. I wanted to see who would help and who would judge. He looked at Mavis. You judged. Mavis's face had drained of everything. He looked at the others in the line. You watched. Several people looked at the floor. He looked at Abiba. And you gave me $61.83 from your own pocket for a stranger you had no reason to trust, without being asked, without expecting anything back. Abiba's hands were very still on the counter. I don't know your story yet, he said. But I know what I watched, and I've learned that you can understand a person's character in one decision, one moment, when there is nothing to gain by being good. He slid the business card a little closer to her. I'd like to buy you coffee. Not today, I can see your shift is nearly done, but when you're free, I'd like to hear the rest. Abiba looked at the card, then at him. I'm not looking for anything, she said. Neither am I, he held her gaze. Just coffee, just conversation. I'd like to know who you are. She was quiet for a moment. Thursday, she said. There's a Ghanaian place on Lawrence. It's small, the jollof is good. Thursday, he said. He picked up his bag and walked out. For a moment, the store just existed in the silence he left behind. Then the mother with the stroller started to clap. Then the older man at the back of the line. Then the teenage boy buying cold medicine. And within 15 seconds, the whole pharmacy was applauding. Inside a Shoppers Drug Mart on Eglinton Avenue, on a Tuesday in February, in the middle of the afternoon, and Mavis Quarty stood in the center of it, smaller than she had been 20 minutes ago, and getting smaller still. She didn't know someone had been filming. She found out the next morning when her phone started ringing and didn't stop. The video had been posted with the title, Woman Berates Elderly Man at Scarborough Pharmacy, then finds out who he is. 400,000 views by the time Mavis's assistant sent her the link. Her employer called her in on Thursday morning. She sat across from HR and her district director. The video was open on a laptop between them. We've received significant feedback, the director said. I was having a difficult day, Mavis said. That is not who I am. The director looked at the screen. The woman in this video wasn't having a difficult day. She was making a series of choices, and those choices showed us something. Effective immediately, Mavis. She was escorted from the building with a box of her desk items. 3 weeks later, the BMW lease company called. By April, Mavis was job hunting and not hearing back. She moved from her condo in Etobicoke to a one-bedroom in Scarborough. She took the bus. She cooked. She began slowly and without ceremony to understand what it felt like to count what was left. Thursday came. Yaw arrived at the restaurant first. No Escalade, no Adi. He drove the old Volvo and parked around the corner. He wore a plain sweater and a coat that was warm but unremarkable. Abiba arrived 7 minutes later in her regular clothes, jeans, the heavy winter coat she'd had since she came to Canada. She spotted him at a corner table and came over without ceremony. I wasn't sure you'd actually come, she said. I said I would. People say things. He looked at her. I know, but I meant it. They ordered jollof rice, kelawele, 2 bottles of malt, and they talked. She told him about Kosi, about the plastic bag in the boot, about the 14 months she spent navigating immigration paperwork to bring him here, the consultant she couldn't afford, the nights she had sat with the phone after a frustrating call from an immigration office and just breathed until she could think again. She told him about her mother's stroke, about being 6 years into a new country when the call came, about sitting on the floor of her apartment in Scarborough and letting herself cry for exactly 1 hour. Why 1 hour? Yaw asked. Because I knew if I went longer I wouldn't be able to get back up, and Kosi needed me to get back up. She told him about the pharmacy licensing program. 2 semesters left, studying on the bus at 11:30 at night because it was the only quiet she had. Why pharmacy? She thought about it. Because medication isn't a luxury, she said. People need it whether they can afford it or not. And I want to have my own practice one day. Community pharmacy. In a neighborhood like this one, where I know who's skipping doses because the copay is too high. I want to fix that. Yaw was quiet for a moment. He set down his fork. I need to tell you something, he said. She waited. I didn't forget my wallet. She looked at him steadily. I know. He paused, you know? She picked up her malt. When you pulled out that phone from your inside pocket, if there's room in a jacket for a phone that size, there's room for a wallet. He almost smiled, and you're not angry. She shrugged. You've been hurt before. That's obvious. You were looking for something real. I can understand that. She looked at him directly. I just want you to know what I did at that counter had nothing to do with you specifically. I did it because a person needed something and I had it. That's the whole story. Yaw looked at the table for a moment. Then he looked up. My mother told me I would know when I had found the right person. She said the sign would be someone giving me something they couldn't afford to lose, and doing it without expecting me to notice. Abiba said nothing. The same quiet, even smile from the pharmacy counter. She was right. He did not move quickly. That was the first thing. He did not send gifts. He did not arrive at the pharmacy with anything to prove. He came back to the restaurant on Lawrence the following Thursday, and the one after that, because Abiba had said she liked it there, and he had said so did he. Slowly, things changed. He arranged, through his foundation, properly structured, nothing that could be called personal charity, to cover the remaining 2 semesters of Abiba's pharmacy licensing program. A professional development grant, arm's length, documented, exactly above board. She found out it was him 3 weeks later. She called. Yaw. Abiba. This grant. Yes. I told you I wasn't looking. I know. He let the silence sit. It's not a gift. It's what my foundation does. I would have funded you if I'd met you at a careers fair. You told me what you want to build. I believe you can build it. If you want to pay it back, come to one of our foundation events in the spring and speak to the apprentices. Tell them your story. That's worth more to me than the money. Silence. Fine, she said finally, but I'm paying for dinner Thursday. I'll allow it. He also connected Kosi with his foundation's mentorship program. Engineers, project managers, people who had built careers in the sciences and the trades, and who were willing to talk honestly to a 17-year-old with a serious mind and a specific dream. When Kosi found out, he sat at the kitchen table and was very quiet. You okay? Abiba asked. He nodded. He looked like he was holding something carefully so it wouldn't spill. Sis, he looked at her. We're going to be okay, aren't we? She sat down across from him. We've always been okay, she said. Now we're just going to be a little more okay. Abiba graduated from her licensing program on a Thursday evening in June. She crossed the stage at Toronto Metropolitan in a gown she had borrowed from a colleague because buying one had not been in the budget. Yaw sat in the 3rd row, a day beside him. Kosi on the other side, clapping with both hands flat together, loud enough that Abiba could hear him specifically from the stage. She did not feel embarrassed by this. After the ceremony, Yaw took her to the same restaurant on Lawrence, same corner table, same jollof rice. Why here, she asked. You could take me anywhere. Because this is where I heard your story for the first time, he said, and because I want it to be the place where I say what I need to say. He reached into his coat pocket. I had this made. He set a small box on the table. It's not elaborate. I didn't want elaborate. She opened it. A gold band, simple clean. She turned it over. 61-3. Engraved along the inside. She looked up at him. That was the number on the counter, he said. I've thought about it every day since February. That $61.83 has meant more to me than every building I have put my name on, because it was given without calculation, without expectation, by a woman who had nothing to gain. Abiba's eyes were bright. I am not proposing to you tonight, Yaw said. We have not known each other long enough for that, and I want to do it properly. But I wanted you to have this, to keep, as a promise, that I am serious, that I am not in a hurry, and that when I do ask, I hope your answer will come from knowing me, not from being impressed by me. She held the ring in her palm and looked at it. Adoniera Fiaquan, she said softly. It was Twi. Love does not lose its way home. He looked at her. My mother used to say it, Abiba said. When I was small, she said it means that real love always finds a way back to where it belongs. He was quiet for a moment. My father said something like it, Yaw said. Different words, same country. She looked at him. Your father was from? Kumasi. She almost laughed. My mother was from Kumasi. He shook his head slowly. Of course she was. 4 months after that, on a Wednesday afternoon during the quiet hour between lunch and school pickup, the automatic doors of the Shoppers on Eglinton opened and a woman walked in. She moved differently than the last time Abiba had seen her. No camel coat, no precise nails, a plain jacket and the specific walk of someone who had recently become familiar with being tired, Mavis Quarty. She moved through the store slowly, picked up a few things, ibuprofen, cold medicine, a small jar of hand cream, and came to the counter. She stopped when she saw Abiba. Their eyes met. Mavis set her items down and did not look away. Abiba scanned them without speaking. Your total is $23.40. Mavis opened her purse. She counted carefully. She was 3/17 short. She counted again to be certain. Then she put the hand cream back on the counter without a word. Abiba reached into her apron pocket. She put $3.17 on the counter. Mavis looked at her. The expression on her face was something that didn't have a single clean name, shame and exhaustion, and something that might have been relief, and something else still underneath all of that. After what I said to you, Mavis said finally, after the way she stopped. Why? Abiba finished bagging the items. Because you need medicine and you're cold and you have exactly as much right to be helped as anyone else who walks through that door. She slid the bag across. Mavis stood there. I've been thinking about that afternoon, she said quietly. About who I was that whole year, actually. I was so desperate to make sure everyone around me knew I was above something. I don't even know when I stopped being able to see other people as people. She picked up the bag. I'm sorry, she said. I know that doesn't cost me much, but I mean it. Abiba looked at her steadily. I know you do, she said. Take care of yourself, Mavis. Mavis walked out. An older woman at the end of the counter, who had been following none of this, and all of it simultaneously, said to no one in particular, that one's going to be all right. Whether she meant Mavis or Abiba, Abiba was never quite sure. Yaw proposed 6 months later, not at a restaurant, not in front of a crowd. He came to the apartment on a Sunday morning with egusi soup from the restaurant on Lawrence, still hot, packed in containers. He sat at the kitchen table while Abiba made tea. Kosi was at a mentorship event downtown. I have a question, Yaw said. She poured the tea and sat down. Ask properly, she said. He reached into his pocket, the same ring, the gold band with 6183 engraved inside. He looked at her. Abiba Mensah, will you let me spend the rest of my life knowing you? Not will you be mine, not will you marry me. Will you let me spend the rest of my life knowing you? She thought about that later, the specific shape of the question. It didn't ask her to belong to him. It asked for the privilege of her presence. Yes, she said. Obviously, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. Kosi came home 2 hours later to find them both at the kitchen table, with the soup going cold between them, deep in a conversation about the empty commercial unit on Eglinton that had been sitting vacant for 18 months, and whether the layout would work for a pharmacy. Kosi stood in the doorway. He looked at Abiba. She lifted her hand. He saw the ring. He sat down, helped himself to the soup, and said, So I'm going to need a new suit. Abiba laughed so hard she had to set her tea down. They were married in January. Not at a hotel. At the restaurant on Lawrence, after hours, the tables pushed to the edges. 50 people crowded in under string lights hung from the ceiling, store employees, neighbors, a few regular pharmacy customers who had become something closer than that, a Dai who cried and was surprised by himself for doing so, and Kosi, who was the best man and gave a speech that ended with, My sister skipped meals so I could eat. She fought for 2 years so I could be here. And when a stranger couldn't pay for his prescription, she didn't think twice. That is not just kindness. That is who she is. And if this man is wise enough to see it clearly, then he deserves her. A standing ovation in a Ghanaian restaurant on Lawrence Avenue in Scarborough. Yaw's mother watched on video call from Kumasi, 83 years old, a thin wool wrap around her shoulders, her eyes clear and bright. "I told you," she said when the vows were done. "I told you to look where life is just being lived." "You did, Mama." The small stall in the corner, she laughed, a low, full sound. "You almost walked right past her." "I almost did." He looked at Abiba beside him. "But I didn't." Abiba's pharmacy opened the following spring. Mensah Community Pharmacy, on Eglinton Avenue in Scarborough, 4 blocks from the Shoppers where it had all started. Transparent pricing posted on the wall. A sliding scale program for patients whose copays were too high. A referral arrangement with a community health clinic on the next street over. Her first employee was a woman she had mentored through the pharmacy licensing program. Single mother, Scarborough. Day job, night school, the full picture. "I just hope someone helps me when I need it," the woman said. Abiba said, "Then be the kind of person who would do the same." As for Mavis, she found a new job, entry level. The kind of work she hadn't done in 15 years, and she did not complain about it. She was learning, slowly and without dramatics, what it meant to treat a day's work as enough. Not as evidence of where she'd ended up, but as the thing that was moving her somewhere better. Some lessons, the ones that come from watching your own carefully constructed life come apart in public, stay in you differently than other kinds. They don't leave. There is an old saying from the Akan people of Ghana, "Onipa na ohia onipa." A person needs a person. Not their resources, not their status, not their usefulness, the person. Abiba Mensah paid $61.83 on a cold Tuesday afternoon for a stranger she thought had nothing. She did it without an audience in mind. She did it without a calculation. She did it because a person needed something and she had it, and no amount of reasoning could make that feel complicated. That $61.83 came back to her in ways that would take a lifetime to fully count. Not because the world runs on transactions, but because a person who gives without keeping score tends, in time, to find themselves surrounded by people who do the same. If this story moved you, if you have ever been the person who couldn't pay, or the person who reached into their pocket anyway, subscribe to Ancient African Folktales and turn on notifications. Every story we tell carries something worth holding on to, and we are not done yet.